All right, welcome everybody to this streaming. We continue the creation of this environment in Unreal Engine 5. Last time we worked on these modular pieces that we can put in the background, because if we remove them, it looks a little bit weird. We talk about the fundamentals, we talk about the design matrix, which we're gonna talk about it again because repetition is the matter of skill. So you see, it looks a little bit weird, especially without those here. So as soon as you put them, it starts getting, a little bit of a punch there in the composition. So last time we worked on the big ones. We're gonna work on the small ones now, or let's just say the medium ones. So let's just start. We can start here because we're gonna use them to decorate faster this area. Otherwise, we're just gonna drag and drop these assets, and it's just gonna take a long time. So let's just start. I will go to the rocks assets I have, and I will select a bunch that I can use. Remember, this rock material is free to use. It's available on our website. You can take a look at that. So you can scale this up and the texture will scale with it, and also will change based on the distance. The tiling will change so you don't really notice it. It's a pretty cool material that you can use. And it also saves a lot of memory, which will be handy in the future. So I will start with this. So let me just hide this for now. And in order to show you better, I'm going to go to the buffer visualization. Here's a little trick I do. Go to specular and hide everything. What I see here is the silhouette. And the silhouette is something like this, right? Now the silhouette is pretty interesting, but we may need more shapes to create like a group composition for our asset. So when I see this asset, I will see everything in terms of shapes, and not actually like my logical brain will think like, oh, this is a rock, and therefore I'm just gonna put more rocks there. That's the logical brain. But let's just say like the artist side of the brain will think in terms of shapes, in terms of forms, in terms of color balance, and a lot of this stuff that it's not really common to use in your day-to-day life. So it's something you need to train. So for example, if I put a rock here, I instantly have my composition more, let's just say plain. Let's just go back to buffer, specular. We're gonna hide those. And you see what happens here is that by putting this here, we are removing this negative shape here. So essentially, when I put this here, I just say I put it there. It's like, it's much more boring. So when I remove it, you have something like this. So every time I add an asset is to think, I need to think about those things. For example, I can make this one bigger, and I can put it here. Now it will be a good idea to place your mannequin. Press Ctrl P. If you don't know this shortcut, you can just press Ctrl P to open the quick browser. I don't really know what's the name of this, but it's like it's a search window where you can just put mannequin, and we can just put our skeletal mesh. We can put Manny here, drag and drop the asset. There you go. So this is definitely not, you know, big enough. So we're gonna go for something like this. And remember, because our asset is actually tiling appropriately depending on the size of the object, it will be very easy for us to just okay, so maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, something like that. We don't want to make it too big. Anyway, we can always adjust the size if we want, but it doesn't make sense to create a shape like this one and then don't use it in the right way. So what else we can do? We can start to create some assets to blend this one. And we will add some virtual textures in the future. Just keep in mind that as you progress your environment, it will become better and better. Let's just go back here and this one is a little bit big for my taste. I can just go back for something like this. There you go. We can go for something like this. And what I'm doing here is basically selling the scale. Let me just show you what I'm doing. If I hide this, basically you have this size of the rock, but you don't have any comparison. I mean, you have the human, but what if we remove the human, we put it like here? Then you cannot really tell how big this rock is. You can look at the ground and think, okay, this rock may be this size, but you always need something to compare with. Like, is this castle big? Not as big as this rock. Is this castle big? Well, it is big, but I don't have any comparison. Maybe I can compare it with these assets here. So you always need some assets to compare the size, and the proportion of the things will actually give you the illusion that you want. Because in games, we always play with the illusion of things. We always play with scale. We always fake the distances. And it's a good skill to have. So whenever you add this asset, it's not only because it will look more realistic, because when you have big shapes, you also have smaller shapes, right? Like you have this big shape here. And then you have smaller shapes here. So we need both. Now, let's go back to take a look at our environment so we can understand the same logic we use to create these props. When we have this, we have a size comparison. So let's just say I look from this, and I have small shapes, medium shapes here. All this will be the small shapes, small, and then you have the big ones. Big, medium, small. So when we create these modular pieces that we want to use, we want to apply the same principles. So everything we put in our world use the principle of big, medium, and small pieces. You got small pieces here. You go medium pieces here. We may need some bigger ones. So let's just put these ones here. And also duplicate this one. Try to put it in position here. Okay, and we could potentially leave these ones, but let's just try to look for another thing. Like for example, this asset. We can go here and don't scale it too much. I mean, you do have like a big advantage because you're using a nice material here, and the texture increases the tiling depending on how big your asset is. So, but do not scale things too much. Just want to make things rotate a little bit just so that we don't see these gaps here. If you see this gap, you can easily solve it by just duplicating another one and put it like here. And then we will put the same asset, duplicate it, and put it here. All right, now this area is a little bit exposed, so we're gonna rotate it a little bit and move it inwards. And look at that. Now our asset is looking much better. Let's just remove this just to check if we have like a nice spot. Looks okay to me. Looks okay. So let's keep adding more stuff here. For example, we can try this one. So we can add more medium assets here. And what I want to do when I add these assets, I want to take a look at the shapes. And the shapes are, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of these shapes. So basically, if we take a look at this, we have one square, one square, one square. I can mix all of those into one. And we can leave those as one shape, one noisy shape. So I want to add a little bit of variation here. Well, let me just try something. Not this one. This is a little bit too much. I felt like my computer was crashing, so just be aware of it. By the way, if you have any questions, put them in the comments and I will take a look as soon as we finish explaining this stuff. Another thing you can do is to sell the idea of a scale. We're gonna put those rocks and we're gonna put them here. We're gonna make it smaller. There you go. I'm gonna grab another one. Probably this one. This one is a good one. So what this will do is actually give us some smaller shapes we can use here. Let's do the same. By the way, I'm pressing Ctrl spacebar just to open the content drawer. Now be careful when putting these shapes, you don't want to expose like this is a mesh. You always want to take care of those little details. And because they're using the same material, it looks like it blends quite nicely. In reality, like it does blend is because we're using the same colors and the same world position offset. Like if you move this material, you will see the texture also. Actually, it's not a world aligned texture, it's only based on the size. So let's just find another thing. Maybe we can put some small rocks here. Now that's not small. But that can actually give me an interesting shape. I'm gonna put it here. And I'm gonna just mix this one here and make it smaller. Because the idea is that you want different shapes for different angles. Because this asset, let me see if I can draw like a 3D view of this. Think of it as a square where you can have the front plane here and then you have the top here, and then you have this side, and on the back you have like this side here, and then you have this side. So each side, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's like a different asset, because if I use this asset in this angle and I rotate it, I should see something different. So this is what I will try to achieve. I will try to make this part a little bit different. So in order to do that, I will just maybe put something like this to break it even further. So what I'm doing is actually adding the variation for my mesh. And remember, like, if you have meshes here, don't forget to delete them if you have in a mesh that is hiding them. Let's see what else we can use. We could potentially use this one, but let's just leave it like that. Actually, let's just leave it there. And let's see. And also, I don't like it in the middle, because when you do something, as you say, this is your composition, and you divide this into thirds, you don't want this to be in the middle. That's not a good thing. You either want it like a 3/4 in one stream or the other. So let's just go back here and move this one just like this. Okay, so that's better. So from this angle, we have something like this. From this angle, we got something like this. From this angle, we could potentially do something here. Let's see which asset we can use. Let's put this one. Actually, let's try this one. This one it's a big one, but let's see if it can fit. No, I don't think this one can fit here. Let's see another one. Okay, let's just leave it like this. I think like this is pretty good enough. I'm just gonna add some small elements into my composition, like here. And just put them here. It's always a nice idea to add these smaller elements in your groups, just so that you can have a little bit of noise. If you remove them, you will see that noise here. And in the next session, we're gonna add more assets here. So like right now, it looks a little bit strange because we're using the rock, and we're gonna change it. We're gonna change it. So go here and select all of those. Let's move it to see which ones are missing. This one for sure. This one. This one. This one. This one. Now let's move it. Like there's something there, but we're not using. Yeah, we're not using it, so let's just leave it there and group this mesh. save it, and we're gonna right click, go to level, create pack level actor, just click OK here, and we're gonna call it L Rock. It's not gonna be the large version, it's going to be the medium one. Let's call it save here. I'm gonna go to the blueprint, save this one. Okay, so now that we have our asset, let's try to use it. Because that's the only way we can really check if. Let me turn off the real time for a moment here. So I believe we have a lot of room to put them in this area. So let's just put them here. Like I can put it here, and like if you find like doesn't really blend, you can either do this, but it really mess up our assets here. So what we can do is just go to the landscape, go to the sculpt mode, go to layer 1, and start sculpting here. Just little by little. Can also increase the strength here. There you go. And here you can, of course, increase the size of this. Let's go to this mode so we can take a look better. Increase the size. We can always flatten these ones. Flatten this area. And then sculpt. You don't want to show those planes. Make shift click to undo your sculpting. There you go. Shift click here. Keep sculpting. And looks like here we will need to sculpt down just so we can see the assets that we put. Same here. Sculpt with shift click here. But not too much. You don't want to. There you go. Something like that, and also shift click here. Remember, we have some really nice small assets we want to sell. We want to make sure we show them. And then you can just smooth things out just so that it looks more natural here. Make sure you sculpt these areas and then smooth them out. There you go. Something like that. And when we take a look at this, now we have our environment here. Now, these little things we can take a look later. And this blending may not be the best. This is where you go to your assets, and there is some assets specifically for this where you can just, for example, let me see. This one is a good one. And just go back here. So it can act as a slope. So with that, you're kind of like blending, because you don't want to show your landscape like that, right? See this one? No, not this one. Go for another one. This one, it looks like a good one. So let's go back here. You can scale it down. And when you find these things, you can always either rotate or sculpt here. Like, for example, you can go to the landscape, go to sculpt, and sculpt in this area. And the same thing you can do here. Let's grab one of this. Now, what I learned from trying to use this asset is that I actually need those slopes in my mesh. So let's add them later, because I already see some manual work and I don't like that. So we're gonna add the slope ourselves, just so that we don't need to do it manually. So I'll go back to check your comments to see if there is something. Groover Dog, love what you guys share. Thank you, have helped me so much. Thanks to you for watching and for trusting us. Like, I know there are a lot of people you can learn from, and your time is valuable, so we try to give you the best information possible. What are the specs of your computer? Just kind of old one, actually. This one I bought like almost 4 years ago. It's a laptop, 32 gigabytes of RAM, graphics card RTX 2070 Super, 1 terabyte of memory, SSD, and Intel processor i7, I believe, and the rest I don't really remember. Hey there, I just started map design on Gaia, but I don't know what's better, design map on UE5 or Gaia. What do you suggest? I mean, you can do both. You can import your landscape made in Gaia, because if you want to do level design, you just don't want a pretty picture. You want something playable. I believe it's for a game. So first you import your level, and then you can still sculpt on top of what you import to, you know, change some things, and you already have a good base to work on. So if you want to use Gaia, like, that's the way I will do it. I will just import my landscape and then sculpt on top of it if I want to make some adjustments. Okay, I will check the chat more often. So this looks like a problem to me. Let's fix it. Let's go back here. Go to edit. Sorry, go to level, edit. And we're gonna remove those meshes here. Just because I'm gonna leave this one, and I'm gonna remove the small details. There you go. We only have big shapes. So what I'm gonna do is to have a slope here. And how I'm gonna do it, I'm just gonna go to my assets. Well, let's just put it here. Now this one don't fit quite well, so we're gonna use this one. This one I always think it fits, but it never fits. This one also not fitting quite well. Let me see which one of those. Okay, so this one for sure. This one for sure is it's always a good candidate. So I'm gonna go here. And just leave it there. And now we're gonna try to do the same here. And you notice we're starting to having some issues where this asset doesn't really help us that much. So we will try to find another one. And if we can't, we're gonna have to make some adjustments to the 3D model. So this one, for sure, I think it's a must. So let's go back here. And I believe we do have a version for this. We do. Let's go for generated. And we do have. So let's go. I can take a look at this one. This is already bended. So what I can do with this is just put it in position, and it will just blend quite nicely with the rest. Because you know I'm having like an envelope, so I want to close it, and this is a good asset to have. There you go. And also here, like, if you see, like, we have some holes here, we can always close it later. Let's see if we have another one. So this one, it's on the way around, so we don't want that. But actually, I think we can scale this like -1 or -1 here. No, that didn't do what I intended. So let's go back to our rocks and let's check. Not this one. We're gonna check maybe. So let's imagine, oh, this one will work as a slope. I think it could potentially work. So we're gonna do something here. We're gonna do something. We're gonna commit the changes. Okay. We still have some things to fix, but we're gonna grab this one. We're gonna go to modeling. And this is gonna take a while, but we will duplicate it. And let me see if, yeah, we will duplicate it. We will accept, and this will take a while. So if you want to ask questions, now is a good time. So can you give me simple tips how it works with layers on landscapes? I cannot really show you now because it's loading, and it's gonna take a while. So I will get back to you later. Okay, so this is a new mesh. How do I know that? Because when I Control V here, this is in another folder. So first things first, I'm gonna go here. And because this is complex, let's go to project default. We don't want any collision here. Okay, and now what we're gonna do, it's go here to the bend modifier. We're gonna put it up just like this. And we're actually going to rotate it. Let's just rotate it like this. Okay, now we're gonna bend it. So we will go to some deform here. There you go, deform. Go to wrap, And now it's wrapping in the opposite direction. So I'm gonna go for -90. Sorry, not this one. We're gonna change the handle. There you go. I don't know why I put -90 and still. So I'm deforming this mesh here. You can show the original. Let's remove it. So now I have something like this, which is good. I'm gonna accept. And it's just gonna take a while. But with this method, you can, I mean, if a Megascan asset doesn't fit your needs, you can always change it. So let's go back and now let's go to the lattice. And let's do 3 by 3 by 3. Let's put the interpolation type to cubic so it's like more smooth. Now what I'm gonna do is to select the points that are here, pressing Shift, and I'm gonna move them just like this, just so that I have something to blend. And also I can select these points in the back, and I can move them if I want it, just so that I can have like a slope like this. You see the profile of this? This is more or less what I want. So I'm gonna grab these points. Make sure you don't have press Ctrl to remove it. You want to make sure you only have the ones that you want to use, and move it. There you go. And now I can go for this and I can move them like this. And this is good enough for me. I will click accept. Now it's funny because a lot of time when you're making your game will go into this kind of waiting time. That's pretty normal. So we got an issue with the normal, so I think we can just go for attributes, go to normals. Let's generate the normals again. I just leave it like that. You saw that the lining, it's fine. Okay. And last thing we will do is to go for nanite. Click apply. By the way, how is the streaming? Because these operations are quite heavy, so I'm afraid the stream will get like a little bit slow, especially because I'm streaming and you know, after Unreal loads, it's just gonna yes, I will save everything. Like, let me know. Like in my case, of course, I don't see the screen moving. That's not because of the streaming; it's because it's like that. But that's a downside of making games, really. It's really a downside. So let's go back here and delete this one. Go to level, edit, and now we can try to place our new asset. Now you see that we need to rotate it. We can definitely do that if we want. We can change the original transform on on the asset. We can go for something like this. Let's change the to local coordinates. And you see, just by doing that, I'm having an asset that I can use seamlessly with the rest of the parts of my environment. So, for example, here I can just close this very easily by using this asset here. And you won't notice the difference. Like this asset is it's a little bit hard to use, so I'm gonna put it like this, and then we're gonna use the same one to blend the asset. Now there is a hole here. It's easy fix. If we can just grab a rock here, for example this one. We can rotate it and put it in position here. Now when I do this, I want to make sure my lining is fine. Go lining only. Be careful with this part, so apply the mesh and put it in position here. But also use some more interesting shapes by rotating this mesh, just so that we can have, you know, this shadow here that you see here. It's being created just because I rotate the mesh. So if I do this, when I put it in position, then I don't have the shadow because it's a flat plane. But as soon as I do this, then my asset starts becoming more interesting. All right, so it's like we got something going on here. Let's go ahead and go to level, commit. And there you go, my asset is updated. So now when I go here, let me just delete those. I don't need them anymore. Just because I realize the manual work that I will need just by trying this asset, and now I can just use this one. And I don't need to use the landscape. You don't want to use a landscape for many things. I mean, it's the landscape is a necessary evil, let's just say. It's very important. It's very useful, but at the same time, it won't solve all your visual problems. So what I can do with this, well, I can just rotate it. And I can start closing here. For example, I can make it bigger even. And I feel this helps. It does help because what it does, it creates a line here for my composition that points towards this direction, which is what I want. So let's see where else we can use this asset. So for example, we can use it to find areas of our environment that are not really polished, such as this one, and we can just put it here. Something like that. And of course, this area, of course, well, for this one, we're not really using this, we can use something like this, much more efficient. And I believe we can use the bended version, will be better for us. Well, that's not the bended version actually of the same asset, it's another one. So let's grab this one. Yeah, let's grab this one here. We'll put it here in position. There you go. We can make it smaller. Just like that. We can duplicate it. And we can always multiply by -1 to have the mirror version. You may or may not realize it's the same asset, so let's go back to this. And we can always scale it non-uniformly if we want it. Not too much, just a little bit. And you see there are some parts here that they need a little bit of love. We're gonna deal with those in another streaming. We're gonna keep putting this asset here. It's quite nice actually, especially with the material. It blends quite nicely with our environment. There you go. Much better. Okay, let's go for some questions. So, how to work with layers. So I have layers here, basically because I have my water layer, which is this one. So if I remove it, you will see I don't have the water here. I have some like rivers or whatever, but that's my water layer. That's my base layer. And that's my top layer. So basically I put everything in the top because in my layer 1, let me try to sculpt something here. It's already been affected by the water. Sorry. This is already being affected by the water. So if I, for example, try to sculpt something like this, you see that nothing changes. So but if I go to layer 1 and sculpt, now I can change things. So keep in mind, it's just a matter of organization. For painting, I personally, I don't suggest you do the same, but I find it works for me. I put all my paintings in the same layer. And layer 1 may have some I don't have any painting layer here. I put everything on one layer just because it gets really messy when I start painting on top of each other. Because this system it's already layering, right? So when you paint here, you're gonna have troubles when you paint in another layer because they don't let you and you cannot paint and you don't know what it is. Just painting the base layer and avoid this kind of troubles. You don't really, like, it's very easy to fix, like, oh, I don't like this texture, like, it's okay, just paint something like this, right? That's like easy fix. You don't need layers for this, personally. That's what I think. Do you find more satisfying doing this one by one, or will you use PCG plugin for faster progress? So what we're doing is not really one by one. We are investing our time into creating the modular pieces, which are these ones. These ones are my modular pieces. So what I will do with the procedural plugin is to, instead of using meshes, I will use these ones to just, propagate this environment, and I will use the procedural stuff later to do some finishing touches, and actually just to populate some parts of the environment that I don't really want to create. I can use splines. I can just use a bunch of stuff, but in order to use the procedural stuff, I need an input, and these are my inputs. If it works, you know, by hand, it will work also by in the procedural stuff. I don't want to grab individual meshes and scatter them, because it will increase much more memory. Not only that, it's actually you got less control, so you can actually spawn whatever with PCG. We're gonna deal with that. Don't worry. So let's talk about other types of assets that we need. Apparently, we need some slope assets. So we already have something if you think about it. So what I can do is just grab one of these, grab whatever I generated from this thing. I can just put it here. I can just create like a slope from one angle. Normally you want your environment to be you know, this kind of modular pieces to be used in a way that you can use it from different angles, but that won't always be the case. Let's save this for a second. Safe level? Huh? No, that was very... There you go. So, it's not always the case where you have like assets that you can use in any scenario. There are some assets that have very specific uses, and it's normal. It's normal. Well, let's go back to this one. We can put this rock here. Now let's try to duplicate this one. We can put it like this. This one, we may need another version. So just do it. Let's go modeling mode. Now you already know how to do this. We will just duplicate this to not affect the original one. And we will just bend it. That's all we will do. We will just bend it. Just so that it's easier to blend with other assets that are also bended. And this doesn't only apply to nature. This kind of cases, it's actually very common with architecture. You have the straight wall, you have the 45-degree angle wall, you have the 90-degree angle wall, you have the concave wall, the convex wall, you know, going out, going in, and with very precise angles, right? Just because it's architecture, it needs to fit quite well, otherwise it will look organic. But it also applies for nature. And this is what we're doing here. We're creating different types of assets that we can reuse in different situations, because not all the situations require us to have a straight wall of rock, right? Some of them may require us to have 45-degree angle wall. And this is what we're doing here. Well, let's just go to warp. Well, let's see what is this. Oh my god. It looks like we're wrapping into, yeah, let's just rotate this. Actually, it's hard to see here, so I'm gonna go move it and go to wrap. There you go. So now let's actually, before doing that, let's put the rotation like this, much easier. Okay, now we can start doing it, because if the rotation is not on 0, it's just gonna be harder to know where is the angle that you need to rotate. Now it's normal that everything turns. Let's see. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. Actually, I can use this handle here. -90. There you go. And this should be good. It should be good enough, I believe. Should be good enough. Let's go for -110. Actually, let's just do -90. And then we're gonna -90 here. Huh? What happened here? -90. -90. I remember I got it. Okay, so -90 is like this, so 90 should be like this. Okay, let's just leave it like that. And also you can make it a little bit more inwards, just to be safe. Click accept, and with that we have a new asset. So this will be like our 90-degree wall, in case if you're doing architecture or something like that. That will be pretty much the same thing. It's just applying the same concepts, it's just that we are not using it with architectural elements. Okay, so the last thing we need to do, otherwise our computer is going to explode. Let's remove the collision and enable the nanite support. And with that, we should getting back those nice frames per second. Again, I'm not joking you when most of your time in game development, it will be like this. I can share you some stories from work at Ubisoft. When I used to work for Ubisoft, you know, there are a lot of times where a lot of the work you do, you need to wait for something because there are so many tools. And that's very normal, by the way. It's not like it's Ubisoft's fault. Even in our real engine, you see this kind of issue. So you're just waiting, you know, waiting. You need to wait for a lot of things. And you know, that's not cool. That's definitely not cool. You want to be productive, you want to finish your work, and you need to wait for a lot of the stuff. You need to download the data, you need to wait for assets to compile. There's so many things that you need to do that. You cannot do it when a lot of things need to load, and that's part of the job. So you need to take into consideration when you do this kind of task, that it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna take you longer than what you think. That's very normal, very normal. And a rookie mistake a lot of people make is underestimate how much time it takes to finish a feature in game development, because they don't count the fact that, you know, they will need to wait for something to load. And that just comes with experience, right? Like a lot of, maybe half of your project at least is waiting you for something to finish. Shaders, compiling stuff, baking things. A lot of this stuff is like dead time. But just keep that in mind whenever you do something. Now I'm considering to put like a, you know, some kind of floor here. I'm tempted to do that. Yeah, why not? We can easily do this. Let's try to use as little as possible. Like, let's go here and we can scale it like this. We don't need to duplicate another time. That will just consume more memory. And let's just say this is my rock. I can just fill in the blanks with some, right, like this rock is really nice because it's like, it covers everything, right? So I can just duplicate this one. And because this rock from different angles, it just sees differently. You will not notice, right? I can just keep duplicating this one. And also helps that we were using the same material for everything. And we will just use the same rock. We don't need to use any more assets. The less assets you use, the better. The idea is to finish your scene with as little assets as possible. You don't really need like 1,000 assets or things like that. Like, for example, you have a little bit of this to cover. You can just scale it a little bit. No one's gonna notice. And indeed, it works quite well. Let's duplicate this one too. Let's put it here. And looks like in this area we need one more. Now these environments can take a long time to make, and I was tempted to do it like, it takes even more when you're teaching it. So I was tempted to just finish it on my own and give you an overview of what, you know, what I did. But I find that making, if you watch them, I know they are not super short, like a lot of tips and tricks, but I'm not gonna lie to you. If you wanna be good at this, you're gonna put the hours. You're gonna have to sit there and you're gonna have to grind a lot. That's the harsh truth of it. And a lot of tutorials in YouTube will give you like a tip or something like in 15 minutes, and it won't help you. And a lot of these things, like at the beginning, you need to watch more because you don't know what you're doing. But as you progress and you have more experience, it will just become more natural to you to know what to do. And you will be able to skip some parts, or you will prefer shorter types of videos. So that's something to think about. Okay, so we got this one. By the way, I will check the comments. By the way, guys, would you be interested in seeing the chat in the window, like in the video? Will it be helpful? I can definitely set something up for next streaming, so you can have the chat here. So okay. Looking forward to see more of your mindset and how you will approach this environment. Yes, that's the idea. The idea of doing this series is to give you a little bit more than just, oh, I just drag and drop here and I finish, right? That's very easy to do, and I don't really want that. So it's like being inside of the mind of a pro, so that eventually you will internalize these concepts and it will become easy to you to make games. Not only making environments, there are a lot of concepts there. Are these Quixel rocks? Yes, they are. They are Quixel rocks, but I'm using material, a special material that, for example, if I scale this, the texture will scale. And also when I get close, the tiling will also be there. And when I get far, you won't see the tiling. So it's pretty neat, It's available for free in our website if you want to download it. ¿Qué onda con ese proyecto? So they ask, what about this project? It's basically it's an environment. It's an environment. I'm using KitBash3D. I'm using Cargo, their new plugin. So I wanted to know to see how much I can push an environment using Cargo, and the project went much bigger than what I thought. Blending material between landscape and meshes, I'm gonna do that later. Like, you have two options. You can either work on the tech first, and then once the tech is finished, it's much easier for you to decorate the environment, because, like, for example, this material, it's considered tech stuff. So when I have this material, it's much easier for me to just grab any kind of rock and put it anywhere I want, right? So the reason I didn't do it at the beginning is because I thought this was gonna be like a really fast project, and that I won't need. I won't need it. I will just decorate something and, as usual, teach you how I will do it. But usually in those tutorials, you don't see the end result is not quite good, just because the focus is on the tutorial. But for this, the focus is on the quality. So we're gonna take on time on this one. I follow you. Your work is really good. I want to ask you something. Can you show me the landscape painting tool? What can we do to make sharp painting? So it's not about the painting. I have some techniques for painting. For example, here I can just go to landscape, go to paint. I start painting, like for example, this part. I can just use a little bit of a strength and a little bit of the size here. And then I can go for this one, and I can go here. The idea is to basically start painting different areas, and I can go for this one. And you can see, like, I have the rocks here, and as I paint the sand starts showing first below the rocks, like here for example. That's because I'm using a height lerp in the material. So I can just paint here and start painting some rocks also. And just by doing that, I'm already having much more variation, at least on this area, right? So, and the material, I believe that, yeah, the material will be shared in the future for this landscape. I'm not sure if I shared this material. I think I didn't. It's just a very simple setup with the tiling from distance, different tiling depending on the distance of the camera. And it was not something that it's easily changeable, just because I duplicate a lot of stuff. Like I said, this project was meant to be something that I don't show what is the process, but what is the end result. But I figure out maybe there's something to show and, you know, share in the channel. So if some of you may be interested in it, then it's can be a good thing. Okay. Are you making the environment without the colliders? Yeah, for now, but I add them as I play. Like if I check the collision, some of them has collision, some of them don't have collision. Like for example, this one's have, this one don't have. Basically, I play the game, and where I see I need to add collision, I add it. Just because the gameplay area is not exactly fixed yet. I can go here and move this one. I believe I can scale this non-uniformly. Yeah. It also works. It also works. Let's see if I can do that here. Just a little bit more. When you scale like this, there was a study many years ago to see when can people start noticing that you scale an object, and the maximum threshold was 1.75. I believe that's too much for this case, but in some cases, it's okay if you scale a little bit, not too much. You know, those are all tools to use, and you can always like scale down. Have something like that. And this is actually a really good asset. So I'm just gonna, this rock is supposed to be for distance, but I'm gonna use it here. I'm gonna use it here. Nobody's gonna notice. Like that's the good thing about having a good material, is that you can just scale your assets and it's just gonna work fine. Not this one, we're gonna use this one, yes. And if we scale it, you know what you can do in this case? You can also grab one of those rocks and, for example, this one. Sometimes it works. Yeah, kind of does. Just because the tiling also it's working in your favor. This rock is the MVP here. It really is. But usually you don't want to use boulders too big, just because the boulder has very specific shapes. But in this case, it works just fine. And then you can go ahead and use one of these blending assets to... And actually, I'm gonna use the ones I generated. Now let's go for these ones. Can use one of those blending assets to finish it. And then you encounter a problem where you also need to close this, so you can just duplicate this one, rotate it, scale it, but not scale it too much. Let's scale it a little bit. It's fine. And the rest you can really just go here to your rocks and one of this. You know, this really sells the scale if you want to use it. Let's just use these ones for now. Now it looks fine here, but if I play from here, it may not look too fine. It's okay. And I'm talking about the size of this thing. Like usually it's not gonna look good. Now when you do something like this, in this case, this is very specific because I want to cover this area. But anyway, I think it helps. It helps because I don't want the player to look at this area, so it's still a good asset to have. And for these slopes, and try to not this one, but yeah, it could work. It could work, but still, we're gonna deal with the ground later. We may add some tessellation to this, some new features for 5.3, which my project is using the 5.21. I'm gonna upgrade it to the 5.3 so we can use the new features. I'm just gonna leave it like that. So last questions before we wrap it up. Do you prefer painting textures over using an auto material? What I prefer is to use a combination of both, because the auto material won't solve all your problems. The auto material is just a mask, and when you need to make some changes, you still need to paint on it. So I find that painting, even in big projects, like when I used to work in Ubisoft, you still need to paint. There is no such thing as automatic material that solve your life. You need to paint. You need to be critical about why you're painting it that way. So, for example, if I want to make a path here for the player, I can just go here to my landscape and make some contrast with some of these textures here. Let's just say something like this, and then I will blend it with other textures such as this one here, and then maybe some other textures here, and then another type of sand, and then keep blending it. So now I have like this path, just to, like, it's a really simple example, but it helps. It does help to know where the path is, and path is a really important thing. Now, if you want to decorate something that's not really for, it's not really for a game or something like that, it really is. It will depend on you. And normally you want to take control of your landscape painting layers. It's work, but a lot of things in game development take time. But of course, if you have an automatic solution, that will be the best. My Unreal crashes if I do rot 1 x rot 0.2. I'm not sure what you mean about that, but maybe you can share a screenshot on the Discord. How can I create a new layer? That's very easy. Go to landscape, right click, create. That's it. Did you make these all assets? No, I don't want to model assets anymore. I've done it a long time ago. I did a lot of them, and I'm just using some assets from KitBash3D, and I'm just assembling a scene. I don't really like to model that much, but that's because I don't like it. Like, if you have to, then there's no other way, right? But there are so many resources out there that you can make most of your stuff without model, and you can use the modeling tools to make variations to existing models. Yeah, like, it's in a way it's modeling, but you don't make it from scratch, right? I'm not using virtual textures for this one. I'm gonna add it later. Like I said, it was gonna be like a fast project that ended up looking like something fast to show you guys how to create an environment. Just, you know, the typical drag and drop stuff, but I found it will be quite interesting if we can finish it, and we have managed to make some progress here and there. Let's play our game. Let's play our game to see if we have some progress. And with that, we will like take notes and see where we can go to the next session. Like this part, I feel it's okay. This part needs a little bit of love. I think next session we're gonna work on the ground assets. Now we have I think we have enough rocks, so we're gonna work in the ground assets. Like this part work starting to look better now that we have some rocks there. And ground assets here. more ground assets. This part needs a little bit of love. Definitely needs more. We need to do some thought process here. Like when you see this, what's the first thing that annoys you? Like maybe this part. Maybe you can think about moving this one like this. Or maybe you want to cover it with some assets here, but this thing will be much easier when we create more groups. Like for example here, we can start creating some group assets just so that we don't use, you know, one asset for everything. And we can go here and can do something like that. But anyway, after this, we will just walk to this area and we may finish here. In the future, we may change those brick walls. Definitely, we're gonna change those. A little bit of a stretching here. But we may change the material for this. It's gonna be quite easy actually. We may do some vertex painting to just increase the quality of this asset. This asset is quite good already. We just want to add some variation into it. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you want to learn more, you can go to unfgames.com where we have a lot of resources there. If you are considering getting serious about game development, you can consider joining our action game course where you create a game from scratch. But if not, you can always enjoy the free stuff we got in YouTube. More stuff coming soon. We got great plans for next tutorials. They're gonna be bigger, they're gonna be more unique, and there will be tutorials that you won't find anywhere else. Those are going for YouTube, so stay tuned. We're gonna reduce the number of tutorials we release a month just to, you know, increase the quality of the courses you can get. But there are a lot of interesting things coming soon. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.